Welcome to Heart Over Gold, the channel where love, kindness, and humanity shine brighter than any fortune. In today's story, Amelia's world shattered when she discovered her husband, Alex's infidelity while she was pregnant. Years later, with their love tested and trust fractured, they must confront the past to rebuild a future together. But can love truly survive betrayal? Amelia had always believed in love. She had grown up with dreams of the perfect family, a loving husband, and children to fill her home with laughter. When she met Ethan, her heart had leaped. He was everything she had ever wanted, kind, thoughtful, and passionate. Their love story had unfolded like the pages of a romance novel. They met in their late 20s, married within 2 years, and soon after, Amelia was expecting their first child, a little girl they were planning to name Lily. However, the joy of pregnancy quickly turned into a whirlwind of doubt and confusion. When she was just 5 months along, Ethan's behavior began to change. He would come home late, looking distant and distracted, his usual warmth replaced with cold silence. Amelia, who had always prided herself on her instincts, could feel that something was off, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. She chalked it up to stress from work and the pressure of impending fatherhood. After all, her own emotions were all over the place with the hormones, the changes to her body, and the overwhelming responsibility of preparing for the baby. But then, one evening, after a long day at work, Amelia walked into their living room to find Ethan's phone buzzing incessantly. Curiosity and unease stirred in her heart. When she glanced down at it, a message flashed across the screen. "I miss you, babe. Can't wait to see you again tonight." Amelia's stomach dropped. She knew in that moment that everything she had feared was coming to fruition. She confronted Ethan that night, and after an hour of silence, tears, and angry words, he finally confessed. Ethan admitted to having an affair with a woman from his office. The affair had started just weeks after they found out she was pregnant. He had lied to her for months, telling her that everything was fine, when in reality, he had been living a double life. His guilt was evident, but it didn't change the hurt that sliced through Amelia's heart. "I'm so sorry," Ethan pleaded, his face crumpling in shame. "I never meant to hurt you. I don't know what came over me." Amelia's voice trembled with pain as she replied, "You don't know what came over you, Ethan. I trusted you. I was carrying your child, and you were out there with her. How could you do this to us?" That night, Ethan slept on the couch, and Amelia lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her mind raced with thoughts of betrayal, anger, and deep sadness. She had never imagined that her life, her perfect family, could be shattered so easily. But the truth was inescapable. Ethan had betrayed her trust in the most painful way. In the weeks that followed, Amelia tried to make sense of the situation. She had always believed that love was enough to weather any storm, but now she was questioning everything. Ethan begged for forgiveness, promising that he would do whatever it took to make things right. He went to counseling, and for a while, Amelia tried to work through the pain. She wanted to forgive him. She wanted to believe that their love was stronger than the betrayal, but every time she looked at him, all she could see was the hurt. Despite her broken heart, Amelia pressed on. She focused on preparing for the baby, spending time with friends and family who offered her support. Ethan tried to prove himself, doing his best to show her that he was committed to making their marriage work. But the cracks were there, and they couldn't be ignored. Amelia had trouble trusting him again, and even though she loved him, the pain of his infidelity was a weight that weighed on her heart. As the months passed, they managed to find some semblance of normalcy. Amelia gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and Ethan was there, doing his best to be the father she needed him to be. Yet, the air between them remained heavy, filled with unresolved tension. Amelia's heart still ached, and though she tried to hide it for the sake of their daughter, she couldn't escape the haunting feeling of betrayal. 2 years passed. The wounds of Ethan's betrayal were still fresh. Though Amelia had worked hard to rebuild a semblance of trust, they had learned to coexist, co-parenting and sharing a life together, but the connection they once had was gone. The love had shifted, turning into something more akin to companionship than passion. Then one fateful afternoon, Amelia received a letter. It wasn't an email or a text message, it was a letter from Ethan's former lover, the woman who had once been the source of so much pain. The letter was short, but the words it contained shook Amelia to her core. The woman had written to apologize for her part in the affair. She had been battling her own demons and had realized the gravity of her actions. She expressed her remorse, and wished Amelia and Ethan the best. Acknowledging that she was wrong in every way, Amelia read the letter over and over again, her emotions swirling inside her. A part of her felt an unexpected sense of closure. She had never received an apology, let alone one from the other person involved. But as she read the words, she realized something. This letter wasn't just an apology for the affair. It was a reminder of everything she had been through. It had taken a long time, but Amelia had finally come to a place where she could forgive Ethan. She had already forgiven him in her heart. It was the betrayal of trust, not the love, that had been the hardest part. That evening, as she sat with Ethan, Amelia finally shared the letter with him. She told him how it had made her feel, how it had brought some closure to a chapter of their lives that they could never erase. Ethan sat in silence, his face pale. He had always known that the affair had left a permanent mark on their relationship, but hearing the apology from the woman who had torn their world apart hit him harder than he had expected. "I don't know what to say," Ethan finally said, his voice barely audible. "I've been trying to make up for what I did, but I never expected that. You deserved better than that, Amelia. You deserved better than me." Amelia looked at him, her eyes filled with both sadness and compassion. "I loved you, Ethan. I still love you in some way, but it's not the same. It can never be the same again." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm thankful. You found it in your heart. You've been so strong through all of this. I never realized the depth of the pain I caused you, until now." For the first time in a long while, Amelia didn't feel anger or bitterness toward him. Instead, she felt a quiet understanding. It wasn't that she excused what he had done, but she had grown. She had found her own strength through the pain. And the forgiveness she offered him wasn't about him, it was about her. It was about freeing herself from the shackles of resentment, so she could heal and move forward. As the years passed, Amelia and Ethan continued to co-parent their daughter, and though their marriage didn't survive, they both found peace in different ways. Ethan worked hard to prove himself a better person, one who was worthy of forgiveness, while Amelia focused on her own growth. They both learned the true meaning of forgiveness, of love, and of moving forward despite the past. 2 years after the infidelity, Ethan sat in their living room, watching Amelia with their daughter. He had learned so much from the pain he had caused her, but the truth of his actions left him speechless every time he thought about it, and he knew that he could never undo the hurt. But he was thankful for the second chance he had received, in love, but in life. Amelia looked at him, her eyes filled with quiet understanding, and in that moment, they both knew that their story had come full circle. Though their paths had diverged, they had both found peace. The years continued to pass, and while Amelia and Ethan had gone their separate ways in many respects, they remained deeply connected by their daughter and the bond they shared as co-parents. Their relationship, though no longer romantic, had transformed into a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding. They had found a way to move beyond the pain of the past, focusing on creating a stable and loving environment for their little girl, Lily. Ethan, now fully aware of the depth of his mistakes, had become a more reflective and thoughtful man. He took his role as a father seriously, and it became clear that he was genuinely trying to atone for the hurt he had caused. His devotion to Lily was evident, and Amelia had to admit that, as a father, he was doing well. He showed up to every parent-teacher conference, every recital, every moment in their daughter's life. His commitment to being a present father had become a testament to the man he was now striving to become, a man who would do whatever it took to make up for the man he had been. Amelia, on the other hand, had flourished in the aftermath of the pain. She had taken time for herself to rediscover her passions, and to heal in ways she hadn't anticipated. She had started a small business, a boutique specializing in handmade jewelry, and it had become a source of pride and purpose. She poured her energy into creating beautiful pieces, something that allowed her to express herself creatively while also providing for her family. Her journey toward self-empowerment and independence had made her feel more like the woman she once was before the heartbreak. She had also found new love, though it wasn't in the way she had once imagined. It wasn't a whirlwind romance or a love that healed all her wounds instantly. It was a love that grew slowly, rooted in friendship, respect, and understanding. She had met Alex at a local coffee shop one afternoon while picking up supplies for her shop. They struck up a conversation, and what began as a casual exchange of pleasantries grew into something more. Alex was patient, kind, and respectful of her past. He never pushed her for more than she was ready to give, and that was exactly what she needed. They took things slowly, allowing their bond to deepen naturally. Over time, Alex had become her confidant, someone she could turn to for both emotional support and joy. He was there for her when she needed someone to talk to, but he also gave her space when she needed time to herself. With him, Amelia felt seen, valued, and most importantly, loved for who she was, not the woman who had been betrayed, but the strong, independent person she had become. Lily, now a curious and bright young girl, had become the center of both Amelia and Ethan's world. They still faced challenges. Of course, parenting was never easy, and there were moments of tension when they disagreed on how to raise their daughter, but there was a mutual understanding between them now, a quiet acknowledgement that, despite everything, they were in this together for their child. Ethan and Amelia had learned how to navigate their differences with kindness, and though the road wasn't always smooth, they found themselves enjoying the moments when they could laugh and share stories about Lily's antics. One afternoon, as the three of them, Amelia, Ethan, and Lily, spent the day at the park, Amelia found herself reflecting on how far they had come. She watched Ethan as he played with Lily, chasing her around the playground, and she saw the man he had become. The love they had once shared was no longer there, but there was something just as powerful: forgiveness. It was a love that had been reborn, not in the way it had been before, but in a more mature, more compassionate way. She glanced over at Alex, who was sitting on a nearby bench, smiling as he watched her. His presence in her life had been a gift she hadn't expected. They had their own little world, one filled with laughter, shared adventures, and quiet evenings. He had become an integral part of their lives, not just as her partner, but as a friend to both her and Lily, though her heart still carried some scars from the past. She had learned that love could come in many forms, and that healing didn't happen all at once. It was a gradual process, but one that was worth every step. As evening fell, the park slowly emptied, and the air turned cooler. Ethan walked over to Amelia, his eyes warm as he took a seat beside her on the bench. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice filled with sincerity, "for letting me be a part of Lily's life, and for letting me be a part of yours." Amelia looked at him, a gentle smile playing on her lips. "You've earned it, Ethan. You've changed. I can see that, and I appreciate everything you've done for her, for us. I've come to accept that the past is the past. What matters now is the future." Ethan nodded, his eyes soft with gratitude. He had never imagined that things could come to this point, but he was thankful that, despite everything, Amelia had allowed him to continue being a part of their family. "I know I can never undo the mistakes I made, but I will always be grateful for this," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll always be here for you and Lily, no matter what." Amelia felt a sense of peace wash over her. The anger, the hurt, it was all fading. What remained was a quiet understanding. She had been through so much, and yet here she was, surrounded by people who cared for her, who loved her in their own ways. She wasn't defined by the betrayal anymore. She had found her own path, her own strength, and most importantly, her own happiness. Later that night, after Lily had gone to bed, Amelia sat down on the couch beside Alex, their hands intertwining. Naturally, she leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling a sense of calm she hadn't known in years. "I never thought I could get to a place like this," she whispered, "where I could truly forgive, truly move on, but here I am, and I think I'm finally at peace with everything." Alex kissed the top of her head, his voice soft as he responded, "You've always been stronger than you give yourself credit for, Amelia, and I'm so proud of the woman you've become." Amelia smiled, her heart full. She had learned the power of forgiveness, the power of love, and most importantly, the power of choosing herself. The pain of the past no longer defined her. It was the love and kindness that filled her life now that mattered most. As they sat together in the quiet of the evening, Amelia knew that she had truly found a place of peace, a place where love, kindness, and forgiveness coexisted, where the future was full of possibility, and where the past was nothing more than a stepping stone on the path to a brighter tomorrow. In the end, Amelia realized that no matter what had happened, she had found her way back to herself, to a love that was real, and to the future that she had once only dreamed of, and that, she knew, was enough. As Amelia and Alex's relationship deepened, their life began to feel like a gentle rhythm, a dance of love, understanding, and quiet support. It was everything she had always dreamed of, yet, sometimes, her thoughts would drift back to her past, to Ethan, to the betrayal that had haunted her for so long. Despite everything, there were moments when the wounds of her past ached, when she questioned whether she had fully healed, or whether she was simply suppressing the emotions for the sake of her future. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Amelia found herself sitting on the porch, staring out at the setting sun. She had come so far, and yet she still felt a tug inside her. She heard Alex approaching behind her, his presence steady and calming. "You okay?" he asked softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Amelia nodded, but there was an unspoken tension. In the air, yeah, I'm just thinking about everything, dot dot dot. The past, the future. Sometimes it feels like the pieces don't quite fit together, you know. Alex sat beside her, taking her hand in his. I understand, but the past doesn't define us. You've already taken the most important step, you've chosen to heal, and that's what matters. Amelia's gaze softened as she turned to him, her heart swelling with affection. I know, it's just, there are moments when the past feels like it's still right there, just under the surface. And then I look at you, and Lily, and I realize that maybe everything I went through was leading me to this moment, to us. Alex smiled warmly, leaning in to kiss her forehead. It's all part of your journey, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. You're not alone anymore. Amelia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words sink in. For the first time, she truly felt like she could let go of the lingering doubts that had held her back. She could allow herself to fully embrace the love that was in front of her. Alex wasn't just a companion, he was her partner, her equal, someone who loved her completely. Together, they were building a life filled with possibilities, love, and trust. But just as things began to settle into what felt like normalcy, a letter arrived that would shake Amelia's world once again. It came unexpectedly, with no return. Addressed, the letter was hand-delivered by a courier, and its arrival sent a chill down Amelia's spine. She opened it carefully, her fingers trembling slightly as she read the words written in neat, bold handwriting. Amelia, I know we haven't spoken in a long time, but I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about the mistakes I made and how much I regret losing you. The truth is, I was never the man I pretended to be. I wasn't just trying to protect you, I was hiding from my own shame. I made a choice that tore us apart, but I've been working on becoming the man I should have been all along. I'm not asking for anything from you, I just wanted you to know that I will always love you, and I'll always regret how things ended. If you're ever ready to talk, I'm here. The letter was signed simply, Ethan. Amelia felt as if the ground beneath her feet had shifted. Her heart pounded in her chest, her emotions a whirlwind of confusion. She had moved on, she had healed, or so she thought. But this letter, this confession, was like a blast from the past, pulling everything she had tried to bury back into the forefront of her mind. What is it? Alex's voice broke through her thoughts as he entered the room, his expression filled with concern. Amelia showed him the letter, her hands shaking slightly as she passed it over. It's from Ethan. He wants to talk. He says he's changed, but I don't know. Part of me wants to see if he's sincere, but another part of me is terrified that I'll open up old wounds. Alex sat down beside her, his arm wrapping around her shoulder in a comforting gesture. What do you want to do? He asked, his voice gentle. Amelia took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I'm not sure, I never thought I'd hear from him again. But what if? What if he really has changed? What if I've been holding on to anger and resentment that isn't even justified anymore? Alex looked at her, his expression full of understanding. Amelia, I won't tell you what to do, but I do know that whatever you decide, I'll be here for you. If you need closure, if you need to see if he's really changed, you deserve to know the truth, but you also have to protect yourself. Don't let your past undo the progress you've made. Amelia nodded, her mind swirling with thoughts. She knew she couldn't ignore the pull of curiosity, but she also knew that she couldn't let Ethan's words take control of her life again. She had worked too hard to find peace, to find love again, and she wouldn't let the past unravel everything she had built. I don't know, she said softly. I think I need to see him, for myself, not for anyone else. The following week, Amelia met Ethan at a local cafe, their usual meeting place when they had been together. The nostalgia was palpable as she sat across from him, the man who had once been her everything and had then shattered her world. He looked different, now older, but there was still something about him, some flicker of the man she had once loved. Amelia, he began, his voice filled with uncertainty. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even deserve your forgiveness. But I want you to know that I've spent the last 2 years working on myself. I've made mistakes, and I've lost the most important thing in my life. You. Amelia's heart wavered. She had spent so many years hating him, blaming him for her pain. But here he was, vulnerable, remorseful, a man who had finally acknowledged his wrongs. I've spent a long time healing, she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. And I've moved on, Ethan. I've built a life that I'm proud of. I have a family now, with Alex, and Lily is doing great. I'm not the same woman I was when I was with you. Ethan's eyes filled with tears as he nodded. I can see that. I've watched you from afar, and I know you've become stronger, braver. I didn't want you to think I'd forgotten about you. I didn't want to leave things unsaid. Amelia's gaze softened, but she remained firm. Ethan, I can't change what happened. I can't change the past. But I can tell you this, I've forgiven you. For me, not for you. And I've let go of the anger. But we can't go back to what we had. It's over. And it's time for me to move forward fully. Ethan looked at her with a mixture of relief and sadness. I understand, and I'm thankful for your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but it means everything. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their past lingering between them. But for the first time, Amelia felt a sense of peace. The anger, the resentment, the hurt, it was all gone. She had found closure, and with that closure, she could move forward with no more ties to her past. I'm happy for you, Amelia, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. You deserve all the happiness in the world. As Amelia walked away from the cafe, the finality of her decision settled within her. She had released the ghosts of her past. She had forgiven not for Ethan but for herself. She had found peace, and now she was ready to embrace the future fully, without hesitation. And as she stepped into the new chapter of her life, she knew one thing for sure: would ever take that from her again. Amelia's heart was lighter than it had been in years. The closure she had gained from her conversation with Ethan had given her a sense of freedom she hadn't realized she'd been missing. Walking back to her car, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders, one she hadn't known was there until it was gone. She had finally let go of the past, and in doing so, she had made space for the future. That evening, when she returned home, Alex was waiting for her. His warm smile greeted her, and as he noticed the relief in her eyes, he opened his arms, pulling her into a gentle embrace. How did it go? He asked, his voice soft with concern but also a gentle curiosity. Amelia took a deep breath, holding on to him a moment longer than usual. I've forgiven him, she whispered, for me, not for him. I finally have peace, but I don't need him anymore. I don't need the past. Alex held her tighter, his arms surrounding her like a shield. I'm so proud of you, Amelia. I know how hard that must have been, but I also know how strong you are. You've come so far. She pulled back slightly to look into his eyes. I couldn't have done it without you. I don't think I would have had the strength to let go, if it weren't for you being here. You've given me something I never thought I'd have: a trust, real trust. Alex smiled softly, brushing a stray hair from her face. You've always had the strength, Amelia. You've just needed someone to remind you of it. As the days passed, Amelia began to truly feel like a new version of herself. She wasn't the woman who had been devastated by betrayal and heartbreak. She wasn't the woman who had clung to the past, refusing to let go of the pain. She was stronger, wiser, and more at peace with her life than ever before. But more than that, she was in love deeply and wholly with Alex, that their connection grew deeper with every passing day. It wasn't just about love, it was about partnership. It was about the quiet moments where they shared their hopes, fears, and dreams for the future. It was about the simple act of being there for each other, through the challenges and the celebrations. One Saturday morning, Alex surprised her with a breakfast picnic in the park. As they sat on the blanket, sharing pancakes and fresh fruit, Amelia couldn't help but smile at how far they had come. Her life had once felt so uncertain, and now, it was filled with warmth and stability. She looked at Alex, her heart swelling with love. I feel like I'm living in a dream, she said, her voice full of wonder. I've never felt more at peace with myself, with everything. It's like I've found my place, and it's with you. Alex took her hand in his thumb brushing over her knuckles. I feel the same way, Amelia. I never imagined that I would meet someone as strong, as beautiful, as you. You've given me a kind of love I didn't know existed. I want to spend the rest of my life making you feel this loved, this safe. Amelia's eyes softened, and for a moment she simply gazed at him, feeling the depth of their connection. I've never known love like this. I don't think I ever truly understood it until I met you. It's not just about passion, it's about trust, understanding, and the way we support each other. Alex leaned in to kiss her gently on the lips, his heart full of affection. When they pulled back, he looked into her eyes, his voice filled with sincerity. I want to spend forever with you, Amelia. I want to create a future together, one that's built on love, kindness, and all the things we've been through to get here. Tears welled up in Amelia's eyes as she smiled, a slow, tender smile that spoke of everything she had come to realize. I want that too, she whispered. I've finally found my home, my family, and it's with you. As they sat there, hand in hand, watching the world go by, Amelia realized something important. Life was never going to be perfect. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, and hurdles to overcome. But as long as they faced those challenges together, there was nothing they couldn't do. Months went by, and life with Alex only continued to grow sweeter. They moved into a home of their own, a small cottage tucked away in a quiet corner of the city, with a garden full of flowers and a porch where they could sit and enjoy the sunsets together. Amelia spent her days building a career she loved, and Alex supported her every step of the way, never once doubting her abilities or her worth. They both thrived in each other's presence, their lives intertwining in ways that felt both natural and magical. And then, one evening, as they sat on their porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Alex turned to Amelia, his eyes soft with emotion. "Amelia, I want to ask you something important," he said, his voice trembling slightly. Amelia's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him, her mind racing with possibilities. "What is it?" Alex took a deep breath, his gaze never leaving hers. "Will you marry me? Will you be mine forever? Because there's no one else I want to spend the rest of my life with. No one else who can make me feel the way you do." Tears welled up in Amelia's eyes as she looked at him, the love in her heart overflowing. She had never felt so sure of anything in her life. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, Alex, I want to spend forever with you." In that moment, the world seemed to stand still. The years of pain, loss, and heartbreak had led her to this point, to this love, this partnership, this future. It was a future built on trust, kindness, and the simple truth that they were meant to be together. As Alex slipped the ring onto her finger, they sealed their promise with a kiss that spoke of everything they had overcome and everything they had yet to experience together. Amelia had come so far from the pain of betrayal to the warmth of unconditional love. She had learned that life wasn't just about surviving, it was about finding the right person to live it with. And as she stood beside Alex, looking toward the future, she knew that their love was just the beginning of a beautiful journey. Years ahead would be filled with challenges, but Amelia was no longer afraid, because with Alex by her side, there was nothing they couldn't face, and nothing they couldn't overcome. Together, they were stronger than anything life could throw their way, and that was all that mattered. As the seasons passed, Amelia and Alex's life together grew even richer. The days they spent building their dreams, the nights they shared in quiet comfort, and the simple moments they relished in each other's company made everything feel right. Amelia had finally found the stability she had craved for so long, but, more than that, she had found a love that filled her heart in ways he had never thought possible. Their love story wasn't perfect, no one's is, but it was theirs. There were disagreements, moments of frustration, and growing pains as they learned more about each other and themselves. But these moments only made their bond stronger, deepened their connection, and reaffirmed their commitment to each other. As Amelia stood by Alex's side, she realized how much she had changed. She had gone from a woman who had once felt lost, broken, and abandoned, to someone who stood tall with the love and support of someone who saw her for who she truly was, someone who loved her, flaws and all. And in turn, she had given Alex the same devotion, the same understanding. They weren't perfect, but together, they made the perfect team. One of their favorite pastimes became exploring the world around them. Weekend trips to the beach, mountain hikes, and picnics in the park turned into small adventures, where they could forget about the stresses of life and just enjoy being with each other. They never stopped learning about each other, even after all this time. Every conversation felt fresh, every laugh felt genuine, and every kiss seemed to reignite the fire that had first brought them together. But there were also quieter, more intimate moments. Late-night conversations on the couch, wrapped in blankets with a cup of tea in hand, talking about everything and nothing at all. These were the moments Amelia cherished most, when it was just her and Alex, two people who had found home in each other's hearts. One evening, as Amelia sat by the window, looking out at the stars, she felt a sudden rush of gratitude. Her journey had been long, filled with hardships and heartache, but it had also been filled with unexpected beauty. She had discovered a love that didn't come from perfection but from two souls who were willing to grow together, to trust each other, and to be there through it all. Alex came into the room, his presence a comforting warmth. He sat down next to her, and for a long while, they sat in silence, just watching the stars above. After a while, Alex broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder," he began, "how life leads us down the paths we're meant to be on? How we can go through so much pain, but somehow, it all leads us to the right place?" Amelia smiled, turning her gaze to him. "I do. I never thought I would be here living this life, but now, I can't imagine being anywhere else." Alex reached for her hand, his fingers gently intertwining with hers. "I feel the same way. You've brought so much light into my life, Amelia. I was lost before I met you, but now I know exactly where I belong." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes as she squeezed his hand. I didn't think I'd ever feel this way again. I didn't think I was capable of this kind of love, but here we are, and I'm so grateful for it. Alex leaned in and kissed her forehead gently. We've been through so much, Amelia, but we've made it and we'll continue to make it together. Their love wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real. It was grounded in kindness, compassion, and a deep unwavering connection that had been tested by time and trials but had only grown stronger. Amelia no longer looked back at the person she had once been, the woman who had been betrayed, abandoned, and broken. She had become someone new, someone who was strong, loved, and valued. As the months passed, Amelia and Alex's love story took on new chapters. The possibility of starting a family together lingered in the air. They had talked about it, dreamed about it, and knew that when the time was right, they would take that next step. But for now, they were content. They were living fully in the present, embracing the love they had for each other and the life they had built. Their future was bright, and no matter what challenges or joys it brought, Amelia knew one thing for sure: she would face it all with Alex by her side. It was quiet, save for the soft hum of the breeze through the trees and the steady rhythm of their breathing. Amelia rested her head on Alex's shoulder, feeling the steady comfort of his presence. She closed her eyes, letting the peaceful silence settle over her. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to fully relax, to trust that everything was exactly as it should be. And in that moment, she understood what true love was. It wasn't about the grand gestures or the picture-perfect moments. It was about being there for each other in the quietest of times, in the hard moments, and in the ordinary ones. It was about finding someone who would stand by you through it all, who would see you for who you are, and who would love you unconditionally. Alex had been that person for her, and she had been that person for him. Together they were a team, a unit that could face anything life threw their way, as long as they had each other. And as the night grew deeper, Amelia whispered softly, "I'm ready for whatever comes next, as long as it's with you." Alex smiled, his arms tightening around her. "We're in this together, always." And Amelia, filled with love and peace, knew that she had finally found everything she had ever wanted. Not in the fairy tales, but in the quiet moments of real love, grounded in truth, kindness, and deep, passionate commitment. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be, home with Alex forever. As time went on, Amelia and Alex's bond continued to strengthen. The house they had made their home was filled with love, laughter, and the occasional chaotic day of juggling work and life responsibilities. They often found themselves caught in small moments of joy, cooking dinner together, playing games in the backyard, and just sitting in silence, appreciating each other's presence. Amelia had never imagined that she would have this kind of peace, this kind of stability, after everything she had been through. She thought, at times, that it was too good to be true, but just when she thought everything was perfect, life threw them another curveball. It started with a phone call one evening. Alex's face turned pale when he answered it. His voice shook as he spoke, and Amelia couldn't help but notice the tension that gripped his body. "I don't know why she's calling me," Alex said quietly, his eyes distant as he glanced toward the phone. Amelia's heart skipped a beat as she tried to make sense of the situation. She had never heard him sound like that before. "Who's calling, Alex?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity and concern. It's Sophie," Alex said, almost hesitating. "My ex—" Amelia froze. The name hit her like a ton of bricks, and her mind went racing. She had known Alex was married before, but they rarely spoke of it. He had always told her how complicated their past was, how painful the divorce had been, but hearing Sophie's name now felt like an intrusion into the peaceful life they had built. "What does she want?" Amelia asked, trying to keep the shakiness out of her voice. Alex took a deep breath, and for the first time, Amelia noticed that something had shifted in his demeanor. His usual calm and collected persona seemed to crack. "I don't know," Alex replied, running a hand through his hair. "She's been calling for a while now. She says it's urgent, but I don't know what to make of it." Amelia nodded, trying to process the situation. "Do you want to call her back?" Alex shook his head. "I don't know if I should. After everything. Sensing the tension that had taken root between them, Amelia stood up and walked over to Alex, her heart beating faster now. She placed her hand on his arm, looking up at him with concern. "Alex, whatever this is, we'll face it together. If it's something important, we can deal with it." Alex turned to her, his expression pained. "It's just that. I never wanted you to have to deal with my past. I've worked so hard to leave it behind, to start fresh with you." Amelia took a deep breath and smiled softly. I understand, but we can't outrun our pasts. We can only face them together. If this is something that needs to be dealt with, then we'll deal with it. Alex met her gaze, and for a moment, the weight of the situation seemed to dissipate. He took out his phone, stared at it for a moment, and then hit the call button. Alex's voice was tight as he spoke into the phone, but Amelia could hear Sophie's voice on the other end of the line, muffled but clear. Alex, I need to talk to you, Sophie said, her tone desperate. It's important. I didn't know who else to turn to. Alex's eyes met Amelia's, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Amelia's heart pounded in her chest as she waited for Alex's response. I'm listening, Alex said, his voice betraying a hint of reluctance. I'm pregnant, Alex. Sophie's voice echoed through the phone, and Amelia felt her world tilt on its axis. I'm having your baby. The silence in the room was deafening. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. The words Sophie had just spoken crashed through her, and she found herself unable to process them. Alex was standing there, frozen, his hand gripping the phone tightly as if it might slip from his fingers. Is this some kind of joke? Alex's voice was trembling with disbelief. I wish it were, Sophie replied, her voice quieter now, but it's not. I need you. I need you to be part of this. You can't just pretend like everything is fine. I can't do this alone. Amelia's world felt like it was crumbling. Her vision blurred as she tried to process what was happening. She had thought their love was unshakable, that their future was secure, but this news, it shattered everything. She had never seen this side of Alex. The man who had once made her feel cherished, safe, and loved was now standing before her, his past rushing back into their present like a wave threatening to drown them both. She felt a sharp pang of betrayal in her chest. The love they had worked so hard to build now seemed tainted, fragile in the face of this new revelation. She couldn't help the tears that welled up in her eyes as she turned away, her mind spinning. Alex stood there, holding the phone, his expression a mix of disbelief and guilt. His eyes slowly turned toward Amelia, but she couldn't bring herself to meet his gaze. She couldn't look at him, not right now, not when everything felt like it had just fallen apart. I never wanted this to affect you, Alex finally said, his voice small. I never wanted to hurt you, Amelia. Amelia took a shaky breath, her emotions a chaotic whirlwind inside her. How could you not tell me, Alex? How could you keep this from me? Alex's eyes were filled with pain, but Amelia couldn't bring herself to be gentle with him. The hurt was too fresh, too raw. I never thought it would come up again. I never thought she would contact me, after everything. I wanted to leave that part of my life behind, Alex explained, his voice strained with emotion. Are you going to be there for her? Amelia asked, her voice trembling with fear and hurt. Are you going to walk away from everything we've built? Alex didn't answer immediately. Instead, he just stared at her, his heart torn in two. I don't know what to do, he finally whispered. Amelia felt her heart break into pieces as she processed the situation. She had thought their love story was perfect, that they were beyond any kind of betrayal. But now, standing there in front of the man she loved, she wasn't sure where they stood. She wasn't sure if they could ever rebuild what had been so violently torn apart. But in that moment of silence, something deep inside Amelia shifted. She realized that the love they had, the life they had built, was still worth fighting for. She had to decide whether she would let this betrayal define them, or if she could find a way to move past it together. I need time, Alex, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need time to think, to figure out what this all means. Alex nodded, his eyes brimming with regret. I understand. I'll give you the space you need. And so, Amelia took a step back, her heart heavy with uncertainty, but also with the hope that maybe, just maybe, they could overcome this. The road ahead wasn't clear, but she knew one thing: if they were going to rebuild their relationship, it would require honesty, patience, and an unwavering commitment to love each other, even in the face of the hardest truths. As she walked away, her thoughts were a tangled mess, but a single question echoed in her mind. Could love really survive when the past had come crashing into the present with such force? Only time would tell. Days turned into weeks, and the heaviness in the house seemed to grow with every passing moment. Amelia couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that had taken root deep inside her. Every time she looked at Alex, she was reminded of Sophie's words. I'm pregnant, Alex. I'm having your baby. It haunted her, twisting like a dark cloud in her mind. The trust they had built, the love they had shared, seemed fragile, barely holding on to reality. Alex, for his part, seemed equally tortured. He spent most of his days lost in thought, working tirelessly, but his eyes betrayed the exhaustion. He was feeling he had made the mistake of letting his past back into their lives, and now he wasn't sure how to make things right again. Amelia knew Alex had never meant to hurt her. She knew it wasn't the love they shared that was broken. It was the way his past had re-entered their lives in the worst possible way. But the raw ache of betrayal still gnawed at her. How could she ever trust him again? How could she ever believe that what they had was real when it had been tainted by the shadow of someone else? One evening, after weeks of barely speaking more than necessary, Amelia and Alex sat across from each other at the kitchen table. The air was thick with tension, neither of them knowing how to bridge the vast emotional gap between them. Finally, Alex cleared his throat. "Amelia, I know I don't deserve it, but I need to ask you something. I need to know if you can ever forgive me. Can you ever see us getting past this? Can you ever see Moose being whole again?" The pain in his voice was undeniable, and, for a moment, Amelia saw the vulnerability in him that she had always cherished. She wanted to believe that he was still the man who had swept her off her feet, the one who held her hand through everything. But right now, he felt like a stranger to her. "I want to believe we can move forward. Alex," she said quietly, her voice soft but steady. "I want to believe that we can rebuild what we had. But I can't promise you that yet. My heart, it's broken, and I don't know if it can be fixed. Not right away." Alex's face softened, his eyes filled with regret. He leaned forward, his hand reaching out toward her, but Amelia pulled back slightly, keeping the space between them. She wasn't ready for that yet. Not after everything. "I'll wait," Alex said, his voice raw. "I'll wait for as long as you need. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I love you, that I want this to work. But I won't force you to make any decisions before you're ready." Amelia sighed, looking down at her hands. "I don't know if it's fair to you, Alex," she said softly, "but I can't pretend that this isn't killing me. Every time I think about you and Sophie, I feel like I'm drowning." "I never wanted to hurt you," Alex replied, his voice breaking. "I never wanted to bring her into our lives again. But I can't change that. I can only be here for you now." There was silence between them again, but this time, it wasn't as suffocating. It was heavy with emotion, but there was also a sense of understanding. Amelia knew that she needed time. She needed time to heal, to process what had happened and figure out if she could still trust him. The next few days were spent in a limbo of uncertainty. Amelia kept herself busy, trying to distract her mind from the constant churn of conflicting emotions. She spent more time outside, walking through the park, trying to clear her head. But every time she thought she had a moment of clarity, Sophie's pregnancy loomed over her. It wasn't just Alex's betrayal, it was the knowledge that he would be connected to Sophie forever, in a way that Amelia couldn't escape. One morning, while out for a walk, Amelia's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out to see a message from Sophie. "I'm sorry, Amelia. I didn't mean to cause this much pain. I just wanted to let you know I'm giving the baby up for adoption. I think it's for the best. I just thought you should know." Amelia stared at the message, unsure of how to process it. Sophie was giving the baby up for adoption. Amelia's heart twisted with a mixture of emotions. She didn't know if she should feel relief or anger. She took a deep breath and made her way back home, the message still echoing in her mind. She didn't know what it meant or how it would change things with Alex, but when she walked through the door, she found him sitting in the living room, his eyes weary but hopeful. "Amelia," he said, standing up as she entered. "How are you?" "I just got a message from Sophie," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "She's giving the baby up for adoption." Alex froze, the color draining from his face. "What?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't she'll tell me?" "I don't know," Amelia replied, her hands trembling slightly as she held the phone. "But maybe it's a good thing. Maybe this is her way of starting fresh, too. I don't know what it means for us, Alex, but I'm trying to make sense of it all." Alex looked at her, his expression pained, but his voice steady. "I don't want to keep secrets anymore. I want you to know everything, Amelia. Everything about what happened. I'll never stop regretting the way I hurt you, but I'm here. Now I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." For the first time in a while, Amelia felt a flicker of hope. It was small, but it was there. She wasn't sure what the future held for them, but for the first time since everything had come crashing down, she felt like they could take a step forward. "I'm still angry, Alex," Amelia said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I think I can forgive you. Not today, maybe not even tomorrow, but one day. Maybe we can rebuild, but I need time." "I'll wait," he said again, his voice resolute. "I'll wait, Amelia, for as long as you need." And with those words, Amelia realized that love wasn't always about instant forgiveness. It was about the willingness to face the hard truths, to confront the mistakes, and to make the decision to try again. She didn't know what their future looked like, but for the first time, she believed that they could build something stronger. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it as the days passed. Amelia and Alex worked through the pain, the guilt, and the betrayal. They didn't rush the healing process. They gave each other space when it was needed, but also supported each other when it counted. They learned to communicate again, to trust again, and to love again one step at a time. And 2 years later, as they stood together, holding their child in their arms, Amelia realized that sometimes love isn't about avoiding the hard moments. It's about facing them head-on together. And in that moment, she knew that the love they shared was stronger than the pain they had endured. They had made it through the storm, and now, they had each other.